Hello, everyone. Welcome to SINE Powerhour podcast, a brand new initiative by SINE, the technology business incubator housed at IIT Bombay. Having been in the startup incubation ecosystem for the last 2 decades, through this podcast series, we aim at providing thought leadership by bringing in deep insights from industry veterans and practitioners. We want to provide our audience a deeper dive into the early stage startup ecosystem by bringing in light different facets of an incubator. This series will encapsulate different aspects from operations, management, strategies, partnerships, business models, and many more. So tune in and enjoy the powerful conversation ahead.
Hello, listeners. This is Ganga. I'm part of Society for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at IIT Bombay as a mentor in residence, along with a couple of other institutions in the ecosystem. Today, it gives me immense pleasure to conduct the first podcast as part of the podcast series at SINE. For today's episode of the podcast, the theme revolves around an interesting topic: rise of an incubator. That's the story all about SINE. Today we have with us Ms. Koini Bhatt. She is the CEO of SINE at IIT Bombay. And it gives me immense pleasure to welcome her to the podcast. Welcome, Koini, for this podcast. Before we get into a conversation, a quick introduction about Koini Bhatt. Koini comes with more than 3 decades of experience from industry and academia. She's a qualified company secretary and has worked with large corporates like ICICI Securities. She's been part of the founding team at SINE and has mentored several startups, several stakeholders in the ecosystem, and SINE is where it is today because of the relentless effort of Koini and the founding team today. So welcome, Koini, over to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, Koini, today's podcast is a conversation to know more about your journey with SINE from start to end. So, my fundamental question to you is, how did this whole journey start? What is this incubation? Was it ever existing when you started off? Just walk us through your memory lane.
Sure. So, if you really look at it, entrepreneurship itself in India is about 2 decade old story, right? And incubation is just one piece of stakeholder in the whole ecosystem. I think when we started, it was a very novel concept. So before incubation, there used to be one initiative by government in academia, which is called Science and Technology Entrepreneurship Parks. But there were more of infrastructure, workshop-driven model, which was suiting, MSME or early stage enterprises activities in those days. But they were suiting towards mechanical workshop or some activity around that. So not really they were equipped to deal with newer technologies. And also globally, like from science and technology park or large infrastructure to the trend was basically creating initiative which is more value addition, ecosystem driven rather than infrastructure driven initiative. And that is the incubator, more asset light, but add more value by creating larger ecosystem. So yeah, when science started, incubation, especially in India, was very, very novel initiative, again supported by stakeholder, government as a main stakeholder, because other ecosystem was not really mature. We were some of us trying to figure out how to take it forward or how to build incubation initiative as an institutional initiative. I think we didn't have any template in the country, and each of us, we 3-4 of us were there early on, and then there were few more got added in initial years. So about 10-12 institutions who hosted incubation center. we try to work with each other and develop the entire model around incubation startup ecosystem. So yeah, it was a very novel initiative. I think in 20 years, the way we look at the ecosystem now, it is not possible to visualize
Sure.
okay, there existed such ecosystem because today it's so vibrant. It's like the kids who are born in 2000 and you ask them that there was a world before Google. Yeah. So it's our mobile phone, right? So it's something like
Sure.
that.
So, considering the fact that it is a very fairly abstract concept, if I can use that word for lack of a better word, um, and they were incubation facilities or similar such thoughts growing in some parts of the country, and probably some of the incubators started the journey along around the same time. Is it because, I mean, can we really attribute the growth of SINE? Because SINE is one of the, nodal incubator. I mean, it's created a thought leadership kind of a space. Whereas there are many other incubators who started the journey alongside. Is it because you had an advantage of being part of an ecosystem of IIT, or what would be the growth drivers which really got SINE where it is today, and
Yeah, so I think IIT definitely is the brand IIT or institution IIT. It helps them. Having said this, there are good incubators in India who are not part of IIT system or who are not part of tier 1 town or institutions, and they are doing well. So yes, IIT as a brand initially helps, but essentially incubation as an organization has to develop its own growth and its own standing, where you invite good startups, you are able to attract good startups, good ideas, innovators, entrepreneurs, your other stakeholders also get engaged with the incubator as well as startup. They add value to the local ecosystem, so on and so forth.
Sure. So actually, that's a very valid point, because today when we look at success stories, or when you attend when you talk to experts, they kind of highlight the importance of having this strong ecosystem for an incubator success. So could you actually share some insights in terms of how did SINE forge these collaborations, build this ecosystem? Because it was not, like you said, it was not a templatized model. So, stakeholders had to be brought on board. You had to join the dots. You had to make meaningful engagements for both, because today, it can't be one-sided. So, what were the initial, steps you took differently, and did you face any challenges there?
Yeah, so Ganga, we started in early 2000, right? And as I mentioned, that startup ecosystem was simply non-existent. And what it meant was that there were no investors, there were no role models, there were no serial entrepreneurs. So there were few, but not the way what we see today. But that serial entrepreneur who will become angel investor, who would invest in startup. Industries were not engaging with startups. The professional services that you require, chartered accountant or legal or whatever mentors. So they were also not very familiar with the need of the startup. And there is always a cost element around it, right? Startups are very frugal in terms of their resources available to them. And those experts and professionals, they have a limitation to engage with startups in that sense. So that was the ecosystem we started with, right? I think some of the things, basically, first thing is that it is just not SINE. Before SINE, there was a pilot that ran at IIT Bombay. which was a IT incubator pilot. And that pilot was for 4 or 5 years. And the people behind that pilot, so Professor D.B. Phatak, who was leading this initiative at IIT Bombay, and then there was another IIT Bombay alum called Dr. Lagu. They basically engage with IIT Bombay alumni community. They brought them together. So lots of knowledge, information, advice, mentoring came to the incubator as an organization, as well initiative, as well as to the startup. And that's where it all started, that what is needed to make a startup successful. Yeah. So you require various stakeholders. So for us, that was the advantage, that initial pilot helped us. They created some base for SINE and we took it off from there.
Sure.
Right? So the government was already funding the initiative. So government was basically closely involved there. We were part of academia. So in academic center, we had access to certain faculty, expertise, mentor, and so on and so forth. Of course, environment in those days was also very challenging and different, but we had access to that. Then existing, there were few success, and that basically invited attention to the incubator, right? And then when investors, especially first angel network, came in India, they were also looking for startup as a pipeline, and they would look at incubators as a pocket to source that pipeline. So we started talking to investors. Eventually, corporates also realized basically that I would say corporates also started getting interested in open innovation initiatives. And that's where even incubators became partners with them. And when the whole environment basically is so now buzzing with startup and entrepreneurial activities, incubator has become integral part of it. So what happens is that incubator is in the center. There are startups, there are alumni, there are graduate startups who come back either investing or mentoring. There are industries. There are experts now, they also want to get engaged, and they also initially they came with very innovative model. Legal firms that okay, you don't have resource to pay us, free service for 1 year or 2 years, but you give us equity. Yeah, so those innovative model also came where professionals started, or expert service started providing their services to the startups. So that's how, and there was lots of effort because you have to reach out to the people, bring them, hold the event, speaker sessions, right? So lots of efforts basically from the incubators also started on that.
Yeah. So actually, this is where I have a very intriguing question. I would say is it was all there around us, right? It's not that it got created, but that ability to visualize something, build the broad picture in the canvas, and then get into the micro level of understanding who are the critical guys, influencing their thought process. Because everybody have different ambitions and different objectives and goals, but influencing their and showing that by the end of the day, if you get into this journey or this path with us, it's going to help you meet your objective. Must have been a very challenging task for you personally, because I think you stitched it across, as in you had a team working, and so just share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, the thing is that,
as a mindset.
Right. So I think essentially you have to map the agendas with the stakeholder, right? So you deal with a startup who is at idea stage, but then you want to bring private equity player to incubator and invest. It is not going to happen. You have to bring more relevant investor, angel investors. entrepreneurs who can invest small money, right? Seed funders. So those kind of. So I think essentially you have to basically reach out to the stakeholder where your agendas and objectives are mapped. So like one example, like we ran like for several years partnership with Intel India. Like it's a large corporate, right? And initially we ran accelerator programs with three or four editions of accelerator cohort-based program with Intel India, and then 2-3 years like this ecosystem platform, right? Now, they had a very specific interest in working with startup. They have a maker lab. They also want to basically work with startup at certain, they were not at idea stage, but acceleration stage, right? And then we came out with common program, right? Eventually, that program basically morphed into an ecosystem platform, right? So that's why, like, relevant stakeholder, when you have to map your, like, common interest, and then basically you have to work with them.
So actually, finally you're dealing with human beings and their mindsets, and alignment of mindsets are so critical, in that sense. I think, and the most important factor in this whole ecosystem is the researcher's mindset, because what you're trying to finally, do at the incubator level is, helping helping the disruptive technology happening or getting created in labs, helping them reach to the market, commercializing, so that there's a societal impact and the society gains at large. So while it's very easy to say, but influencing the mindset of the researcher, because finally they are the doers, they are the karta in that sense, right? Of course, with the team, etc. So how did you manage that? Because finally the proof of the pudding is there.
Right. So yeah, I think so things have significantly changed now, but if you go back to 2 decades, like 2 decades, I think you look at academia, they were more into teaching, projects, innovation, research. Right? To some extent, they were also engaging with real life problem in terms of by way of consulting industry or corporates and other research groups. Spinning out as a startup, so faculty become an entrepreneur. That was not really basically, there were not too many precedents, not only within our ecosystem, but across the country. So, and also like in olden days, like academic, like it was more of a socialistic cause, not really money making cause, right? So the whole environment was very different in those days. So you have to go back there, talk to the faculty member, track their research, meet them. You address faculty forum, you address department meetings, you share more and more information about incubators as well as success stories of startups. Yeah. And that basically catches more and more attention. And when you have few your local role models, then there's more confidence and more interest that this is done and we can also do it. I'll give you like I talk about this pilot incubator, and the team at that point of time were actually mentioning this to me, because in pilot incubator we supported 13 companies, out of which 2 were faculty driven. Rest of the companies were started by our own alum. So when alum and students were doing startups, few faculty members actually thought on that line that these are young generation, they are just out of the college. And if they can start, we have a good amount of research to back us. Why can't we start? Right? Now, they started, and if one or two such success, like it's all peer group get excited about it, right? So that's one aspect. Second aspect is that within institute you have to create a mechanism, like so mechanism for transfer of IP at kind of a more entrepreneurial terms, favoring terms, right? Uh, Faculty members, they are supposed to do academics, research, they have projects, right? How much time do you spend for startup? When there is a conflict. Resource, like you have institutional resource, not personal resource. Can you use it for your startup? So those kind of mechanism, or conflict of interest, everything got addressed. And I think that worked very well. That now there is a easy process, there is an access to IP, but the process is not complicated. Even if they fail, they can always basically bring that IP back to the institute if there are no complication within the startup, and they continue their research and they basically chance even next time as well, right? So the whole, it's a process. It's not a single incident or how I work on this aspect or that aspect. It's a process. And over 20 years, there's a significant shift in mindset.
So actually, what I hear you say is that while you had to deal with an external ecosystem and keep it ready and open their minds and get them to look at this opportunity, there's a lot of groundwork which happens within the internal ecosystem, or I would say the institution supported ecosystem, which requires a lot of policy change, etc. Right? So. In that sense, for a successful incubator today, there's a lot of groundwork which has to go through before they actually,
Sure.
show their results and performances like so many startups in the market, etc. So, what's your view on that?
No, I think that is like for any academic institution, they want to host an incubator. There are some fundamental things physically they need to do. One is that institutional policies, right? They have to put it in place. Faculty engagement with startup. How much time do you spend with startup? How do you make resources accessible? What kind of equity they can take? Not only that, sabbatical or lien policies. So that's one aspect. Now, who owns the IP, right? Where the resources come from. So that's one aspect. Second aspect is actually motivating faculty members to engage with startup. It may be there or not, but they have expertise and they can make huge impact by mentoring startup, technically advising startups, right? Third thing is that you require your own pipeline. So pipeline of students, pipeline of the technologies, right? And for that, at least initial mindset needs to be addressed or changed, right? And so initiative like e-cells or constantly having awareness program, IP program, some thematic session, right? Team building or capital structuring, those kind of workshop or training program for the students. Typically, in most campuses, this does happen at e-cell level, all this awareness activity, right? So they bring some kind of awareness, understanding in potential entrepreneur, right? So one is that institutional level mechanism. Another is that motivating the entire community, be it student community, be it faculty community, right? Motivating them to engage with startup directly or indirectly. And third thing is that awareness about what it involves in starting. So all these three things basically need to be there. Lastly, there are so many programs basically, it's a government program or corporate CSR initiatives and all those things that can be leveraged. There are, for example, government has proof of concept grants, right? They have taking prototype to product, those kind of grants. So can you, as either as an incubator or academic institution, can you also bring those grants to your potential innovators and entrepreneurs? So these are the things you do.
Sure. So
and lastly, you also require, while you do this awareness, you actually require lots of entrepreneurs, industry people, investors coming and talking to them, even if they have not started their venture. But for example, like entrepreneur, their journey, it's very inspirational for potential entrepreneur, right? Investor talking about what they look at it when they fund, right? What are the emerging sectors? So that is also basically very helpful in building local ecosystem.
So today, as we speak, we talk about business model canvas for startups. So is there a business model canvas for an incubator? Do you see that, or is it evolving, or can it be? What's your view on that? Because finally, we are talking of incubators also being sustainable over a period.
Right. So I think sustainability is the key. Business model canvas and all those things, you can fit it, all the stakeholder will be there and all those things. But you can't have, you are not selling products, right? You have your infrastructure together with your service, you are giving them. Now for any incubator, the client is startup. And as I said, startup itself is a very risky business, right? Out of 10, maybe 3 survive, so make it big. And our clients are startup clients. Even we are in a riskier domain, if you really look at it. So sustainability is a very, very big piece for us. How do we attain sustainability? I think several of us who have been able to manage that, adopted several approaches. So one is that you have a long-term economic model, which is sustainable over a period of time, because startups cannot pay. Again, incubator is not an infrastructure driven. At the same time, when they use your space, they cannot afford paying the commercial cost. So it has to be economic. The whole cost model, cash-based cost model has to be very economic, right? So against that subsidy, you pick up some equity, and every year that 1 or 2 gets liquidated, and then you get your resources. So one is that kind of incubation economic model. Another is that on this partnership program where you take your services or management fee or whatever. So this kind of revenue keep coming to incubator. Now there are incubators, some of us are also looking at setting up a fund, like VC fund, or which can help them, both the side. One is support startup, at the same time at the end of the fund, periodically you also get some resources out of this one. So these are the ways to deal with the sustainability.
So that's an interesting point. So when you're saying the way forward, sustainability is linked to fund management, and that goes to talk about speaks about the credibility of the incubator, the team.
Right.
Yeah, because that's when the funds start coming in. So how challenging, because whatever incubators, some of them we talk to, they say the big challenge is we don't get the right set of people. If we get good talent, there's a trade-off here, there. So how did you manage in SINE to get this kind of a team, which is as passionate or dedicated like a startup entrepreneur? And any thoughts on how this can be handled today as a challenge?
Right. So first thing is that we don't have funds. So, but if at all we go for fund, you require a proper fund manager.
Sure.
Right. But having said, I come back to incubator. So in incubator also, like you see, it's a very interesting thing, right? We are part of academia, but our profile is a corporate profile.
True.
Yeah, and you have to deal with startup addressing their problem in very domain and very various kind of problems, right? So it's a very interesting, so
Absolutely.
one for all kind of thing. I don't think it's easy to get incubator managers, you don't have MBA in incubation or something like that. It's
true.
not there, right? And again, you are dealing with data practical aspects. So, and they differ so much, challenges of entrepreneur, right? So it differs from startup to startup. I think lots of learning happens while you are on the job. What is required is basically some understanding of external world, business world. Whether this works, this doesn't work. Understanding of the ecosystem, right? So you know that like one startup is stuck here, where to go, right? So understanding of the ecosystem. And third thing is that basically, I think attitude, right? Attitude, and I would say also aptitude, right? Like especially when you talk to the startup, you understand their problems and how do you help them, right? So those kind of attitude plus aptitude. So I won't say that there is a single job profile out there. I think in SINE, it's working out very well because we have a very good transparent culture. So, and by the way, incubators cannot even pay, we ourselves have very limited resources, so we cannot pay industry equivalent job. So far, over a period of 2 decades, what has worked out for us is basically we take not really experienced team, but when they come here, we really expose them directly to the job. Our culture is very, our team culture is very good, very positive, very transparent. And there is always a, attitude that one person always try to create a backup person. So there are two members, say for example, in incubation team, right? So there is one front person who is talking to the startup. There is always a backup person. So is the case in portfolio. So is the case in partnership. So team gets a very, very large, good exposure overall. At the same time, they are also kind of building their backup support system here. And that's how it has been working.
And so typically incubator, what are the key functional roles in incubator? I mean, now that your org chart is kind of got created, so what would be the broad things? So you talk of incubation at a very broad level, just to get an idea.
Yeah, again, it depends, Ganga, on the profile of an incubator, right? If it is incubator like us, which we do like vanilla incubation activity, right? So we have incubation team. for ecosystem, we have partnership team, we have portfolio team because we have so many startups to manage. Then we have like outreach, like team, and then there is a support team like finance, accounts, IT, and we manage with so many other projects. So we also have a project team, but that is suitable for our profile.
Sure.
Some incubator is like only say biotech or healthcare, that profile. They also may have many more scientists to help this, help them startup on that. Yeah, like senior lab people, right, to manage certain equipment, high-end equipment, and all those stuff. So it all depends on the profile.
But the basics remain. Of course, as you said, it has to be customized to their.
It has to be customized.
Okay. So great. I think 2 decades of journey and your insights have been extremely interesting, thoughtful, a lot of value addition. I can only say that the listeners are really privileged to hear from somebody who's seen this journey. So where do you see this? What are your thoughts in the next coming few years? Directionally, what kind of I would say not transformation. How do you see this whole system evolving towards? Any thoughts on this?
Okay, so let me put this way. See, when we started, we were about 10-15 incubators. Today, India has more than 300-400 incubators supported only by governments. And then there are so many other private initiatives. Now, I think one side you see government like betting a lot on entrepreneurship, and they are pushing this incubation initiative towards knowledge centers, and all these incubators are created. On the private side, like you look at it, there is a large wave of innovation, entrepreneurship, and everyone would want to leverage. Good for all of us. Yeah. But fundamentally, as the ecosystem evolves or ecosystem matures, if you really look at it, need for incubation minimizes. Right? Because you have all the stakeholders now accessible. Why do you want to go to incubator? So even on value proposition, incubators have to constantly go up and up, and becoming more and more like niche, offering. So my sense is that in those incubators who are able to evolve and bring real strong solid value proposition on the table, they will survive, they will progress if government will serve the support. Otherwise, those who are not able to do that, I think they will eventually struggle.
It's like any other industry cycle that we have seen.
Sure, right?
I think
this industry cycle, let me tell you, it is heavily supported by government.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Unlike other industries.
True. So I think this has been a very wonderful conversation. So a personal question. 2 decades, so far, seeing some exciting stories ahead. What has been the most satisfying part of your journey? Any message to our listeners, out of your journey, or whatever you see would happen eventually, or you see it happening eventually?
No, I don't have any message. I don't have a particular instance that this is my most satisfying journey. But you look at when you talk about an investor, what they would look at it. because they're putting money. As an incubator, we are putting very small money, right? They would want basically a good acquisition, exit. They would want, in this days, unicorn. They would want IPO, right? I think we have done all this. We have achieved this on our list, right? On top of it, we have been able to work with entrepreneurs who really have come out with a very disruptive technologies, right? Which is real. Some of them are like for the first time in India kind of technologies, right? So I think when you look back, this is the whole thing. Like, that's very satisfying for me particularly, SINE in general. Very satisfying story for us.
And the IIT ecosystem.
Of course, IITB. Like we are housed here. So the base is at IIT Bombay.
Fantastic. I wish I could take this conversation for much longer. It's been my pleasure to really, have a conversation with you, and thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. The listeners would have many more such questions. I'm sure they will reach out through your details must be there in the SINE website, so they can always write to you or reach out to you or your team. So thank you so much, Koini, for taking time out, and wish you all the very best in all your future endeavors. Thank you so much.
Thank you.